She walked into Jefferson High School at 7:43 a.m., just another substitute teacher with a worn cardigan and sensible shoes. Sarah Mitchell, 68 years old, gray hair in a tight bun, hands that trembled slightly when she wrote her name on the board. The students in room 302 barely looked up from their phones. Another easy day with another pushover substitute. They had no idea that in exactly 17 minutes, this quiet woman would save all their lives. Welcome to the Human Stories. Before we begin this incredible tale of hidden identity and split-second decisions, tell me, where in the world are you watching from today? And if you believe that heroes often were the most ordinary disguises, hit that subscribe button. Sarah Mitchell stood before the advanced placement history class. 32 juniors who thought they had her figured out the moment she walked in. Tyler, the football captain, was already making paper airplanes. Ashley and her group were planning their lunch order. Marcus had his earbuds in, not even pretending to pay attention. "Good morning," Sarah said softly, adjusting her thick glasses. "I'm Mrs. Mitchell. I'll be substituting for Mr. Coleman this week." "This week?" Tyler groaned loudly. "Man," Coleman said he'd be back tomorrow. "Plans change," Sarah replied, opening the lesson plan folder. Her hand shook slightly as she flipped through the pages. Jennifer, the class valedictorian, noticed the tremor. "Mrs. Mitchell, are you okay? Do you need to sit down?" "I'm fine, dear. Just a bit of arthritis." "Now, let's talk about the Cold War." "Seriously?" Tyler interrupted. "The Cold War? That's ancient history. Were you there for it?" Some students laughed. Sarah's expression didn't change. "As a matter of fact, yes. I was 26 when the Berlin Wall came down." "Did you watch it on TV?" Ashley asked mockingly. Sarah paused, a strange look crossing her face. "Something like that." She turned to write on the board when the intercom crackled to life. Not the usual morning announcements tone. 3 sharp beeps. Then Principal Harrison's voice, trying to sound calm, but failing. "Attention all staff and students. We are initiating immediate lockdown procedures. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Lock all doors, turn off lights, and move away from windows. Remain silent." The room erupted in panic, but what Sarah did next stunned everyone. While students scrambled, screamed, and fumbled with their phones, Sarah moved with a precision that seemed impossible for a woman her age. In 3 seconds, she had locked the door. In 5, she'd killed the lights. In 7, she was dragging the heavy teacher's desk against the door. "Everyone, southwest corner." Now, her voice had changed. Gone was the soft, grandmotherly tone. This was a voice that expected immediate obedience. "Why southwest?" Tyler started. "Because it's the only corner not visible from either window or the door sight line. Move." Now, the students, shocked by her transformation, scrambled to the corner. But Sarah wasn't done. She grabbed a chair, stood on it despite her age, and did something to the ceiling tile. A red light that none of them had noticed before suddenly went dark. "Motion sensor," she explained curtly. "They can detect heat signatures through walls if they have the right equipment." "They?" Marcus pulled out his earbuds. "Who's they? What's happening?" Sarah pulled out her phone. Not the smartphone everyone expected, but an old flip phone. She typed a message with impossible speed for someone whose hands supposedly shook from arthritis. Then she moved to the window, peering out at an angle that kept her hidden. "Mrs. Mitchell," Ashley whispered, tears streaming down her face. "What's going on?" Sarah held up a hand for silence. She was counting something, her lips moving silently. Then she turned back to the class. "There's an intruder in the building, possibly armed. North entrance, moving toward the main office." She said it so matter-of-factly that it took a moment for the words to sink in. "How could you possibly know?" "Jennifer, take off your jewelry." "All of it. Rings, earrings, necklace. They reflect light." Sarah was already moving, pulling down the classroom's blinds, but leaving them cracked just enough to see out. "Tyler, you're the strongest. Help me move the bookshelf." "The bookshelf? What?" "Secondary barricade. If they breach the door, this gives us 30 seconds." Tyler stood frozen. "Breach? Lady, this isn't a movie." Sarah grabbed his arm. Her grip was surprisingly strong. Tyler, in the next 10 minutes, you can either be a survivor or a statistic. Choose. Something in her eyes made him move. As they positioned the bookshelf, he noticed something odd. Despite her supposed arthritis, her hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady, deliberate, precise. "You've done this before," Marcus said. It wasn't a question. Sarah didn't answer. She was busy doing something with the classroom's phone cord, fashioning it into what looked like a tripwire near the door. Everyone, phones on silent. Not vibrate. Silent. She pulled out her own phone again, typed another message. "If you've already texted your parents, that's fine. But no more after this. Cell tower triangulation can give away positions." "How do you know all this?" Jennifer asked, voice barely a whisper. Before Sarah could answer, they heard it. Footsteps in the hallway. Slow, deliberate, getting closer. Sarah's entire demeanor shifted. She moved to position herself between the students and the door, reaching into her bag. When her hand came out, she was holding a metal ruler, but the way she held it suggested it was something more. "Stay behind me. Whatever happens, stay behind me." The footsteps stopped right outside their door. The handle jiggled. The students held their breath. Sarah stood perfectly still, that ruler held in a way that would have looked ridiculous if it wasn't so clearly purposeful. Then came a knock. 3 taps. Pause. 2 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Sarah's shoulders relaxed slightly. She responded by tapping the ruler against the desk in the same pattern. A voice from outside, barely audible. "Guardian Angel, this is Falcon. Sector 7 clear." Sarah replied in a voice none of the students had heard before. "Copy, Falcon. Guardian has 32 packages secure. Northwest corridor compromised. Negative. Target acquired. Main office. Team 2 is moving. Roger. Maintaining position." The footsteps moved away. The students stared at Sarah in absolute shock. "Mrs. Mitchell," Tyler whispered. "What the hell?" "Language, Tyler." The grandmother voice was back, though her eyes remained fixed on the door. "And it's not Mrs. Mitchell." "Well, it is, but it's also Commander Mitchell. Retired." "Mostly. Commander?" Ashley's voice cracked. "Commander of what?" "CIA Tactical Response Unit. 30 years. She said it like she was stating her favorite coffee order. "I've been retired for 8 years. Teaching seemed like a nice change of pace." But you're just a substitute teacher," Jennifer stammered. "Am I?" Sarah smiled slightly. "Jennifer, did you notice that Mr. Coleman got sick rather suddenly? Right after the school received that threat last week, that Principal Harrison tried to keep quiet." The students exchanged glances. There had been rumors about a threat, but "You're here because of the threat?" Marcus asked. "Let's just say, when certain keywords pop up in certain communications, old friends call in old favors. I volunteered to keep an eye on things. Good thing, too. Sirens were getting closer now. Lots of them." Sarah finally allowed herself to relax, slightly, though she maintained her position by the door. "The shaking hands," Tyler said suddenly. "That was fake." Sarah held up her hands. They were rock steady. Carpal tunnel from 30 years of weapons training. "Only shakes when I don't concentrate on keeping them still. Useful for maintaining cover." "Cover? You're under cover?" "At our school. Was. I think that's blown now." She checked her phone. "Threat neutralized. We'll have visitors in about 90 seconds. "The FBI?" Ashley asked. "Among others." What happened next would become legend at Jefferson High. The sound of heavy boots filled the hallway. Multiple sets, moving with military precision. Then a voice, loud and authoritative. "Room 302, this is FBI Tactical. We're coming in." Sarah responded. "Acknowledged. Guardian Angel confirms. 32 packages ready for extraction." The door opened. Sarah had somehow unlocked it without anyone noticing, and a stream of tactical officers entered. But instead of treating Sarah like a civilian, the lead officer immediately straightened and saluted. "Commander Mitchell, honor to finally meet you, ma'am." Sarah waved him off. "I'm retired, Agent Torres. Just a substitute teacher now. With all due respect, ma'am, you're never just anything." He turned to his team. "This is Commander Sarah Mitchell. Operation Lightning Strike, Operation Desert Phantom, the Belgrade extraction. Half of you are alive because of tactics she developed. The students watched in stunned silence as every officer in the room nodded respectfully to their substitute teacher. The intruder? Sarah asked. Custody. Thanks to your early warning, we intercepted before he reached his target. Which was? Torres glanced at the students, then back at Sarah. This room, ma'am. The intel you provided was accurate. He had a specific target. The blood drained from several faces. Sarah nodded grimly. Michael Patterson, Jennifer's ex-boyfriend, expelled last year. She looked at Jennifer, who had gone white. You filed a restraining order last month. He didn't take it well. You knew. Jennifer whispered. You came here for me. I came here for all of you. But yes, Jennifer, you were why I made sure to take this particular assignment. Ma'am, Torres interrupted. Director Williams is on site. He'd like a word. Tell him I'm busy teaching class. Ma'am, it's the director of the FBI. Sarah smiled. And these are my students. He can wait. Torres actually chuckled. Yes, ma'am. I'll tell him. He paused at the door. Oh, and ma'am? Moscow says hello. Sarah's expression flickered. Moscow can keep saying hello. I'm still retired. After the FBI left, after the statements were given, after the parents arrived in tears, the students of room 302 found themselves back with Sarah Mitchell. The school had canceled classes, but none of them wanted to leave. They sat in a circle, processing what had happened. 30 years, Marcus said finally. You did this for 30 years. Different versions of this, yes. How many times? Ashley started, then stopped. How many times have I been in a situation like this? More than I can count. How many times have I had to protect students? This is the first, and hopefully the last. You're not really a teacher, are you? Tyler asked. Sarah considered this. I have a master's in education from Georgetown. I've been substituting for 3 years. So yes, I'm really a teacher. I'm just also other things. The CIA, Jennifer began, is my past. Teaching is my present. Sarah's voice was firm. I chose this. After 30 years of violence, of secrets, of constant vigilance, I wanted to give back differently. To protect through education, not elimination. But you came back. For us. For you, Sarah confirmed. When the threat assessment came across certain desks, when Patterson's profile matched certain patterns, yes, I came back. One last mission. Will you stay? Ashley asked quietly. As our teacher, Sarah smiled, and for the first time, it reached her eyes fully. Well, mister, Coleman will be out for at least another week. Terrible flu. Very contagious. You did something to him, didn't you? Marcus accused. I brought him soup. Homemade. With a very mild sedative that mimics flu symptoms. He'll be fine in a week, well rested and with a nice paycheck for sick leave. The students laughed. Actually laughed after everything that had happened. The story of Sarah Mitchell would spread far beyond Jefferson High. 3 days later, the full story broke. Sarah Mitchell, decorated CIA operative, 30 years of service, 17 commendations, most of which were still classified. The woman who had prevented an assassination attempt on a foreign diplomat in 1987, who had extracted 12 hostages from Tehran in 1991, who had identified and stopped 3 separate terrorist cells on American soil before September 11th, and who had walked away from it all to become a substitute teacher. The media went crazy. Everyone wanted interviews. Book deals were offered. Hollywood came calling. Sarah refused them all. I'm a teacher, she told the one reporter she agreed to speak with, a student journalist from Jefferson High's newspaper. That's all I want to be now. But you're a hero, the student insisted. No, I'm an educator. Heroes are the teachers who show up every day without combat training, without weapons expertise, without tactical knowledge, and still stand between their students and danger. I had advantages they don't. That doesn't make me a hero. It makes me prepared. The interview went viral, but not for the reasons people expected. It wasn't the spy stories that resonated. It was Sarah's passionate defense of teachers. Principal Harrison tried to offer her a full-time position. The school board unanimously approved it. Sarah declined. I'm a substitute, she said. I go where I'm needed, when I'm needed. But she did agree to one thing. Once a month, she would teach a special seminar. Not about spycraft or tactics, but about situational awareness, personal safety, and emergency preparedness. The classes were packed. A month after the incident, Sarah was back in room 302, substituting for a different teacher. The students, many of them the same ones from that day, filed in quietly. Tyler, usually loud and brash, simply nodded respectfully. Ashley had stopped wearing her flashy jewelry. Marcus paid attention. Jennifer sat in the front row, no longer afraid. "Good morning," Sarah said, hands trembling slightly as she wrote on the board. "Today we're discussing the Revolutionary War. Unless, of course, something more interesting comes up." "Mrs. Mitchell," Tyler raised his hand, properly this time. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." The shaking hands. "You don't have to fake it anymore. We all know who you are." Sarah smiled. "Tyler, the most important lesson I can teach you is this. Strength isn't about what you can do. It's about choosing when to do it. These hands shake because I let them. It reminds me that I'm human, that I'm vulnerable, that I'm just like everyone else. The moment I stop letting them shake is the moment I stop being Mrs. Mitchell the teacher and become something else. And I prefer being Mrs. Mitchell. But that day required something else. Today doesn't." She turned back to the board. "Now, the Boston Tea Party. Who can tell me why it really happened? And please, don't give me the textbook answer. History is written by victors, but the truth is always more interesting." As she taught, her hands shaking slightly, wearing her comfortable cardigan and sensible shoes, the students of Jefferson High learned something profound. Heroes don't always wear capes or carry guns. Sometimes they wear cardigans and orthopedic shoes. Sometimes they have trembling hands and soft voices. And sometimes, just sometimes, they're standing at the front of your classroom teaching you about more than just history. They're teaching you that everyone has depths you can't see, stories you can't imagine, and the capacity for extraordinary things when ordinary people are threatened. Sarah Mitchell continued to substitute teach for 5 more years. The FBI kept her number. The CIA occasionally called. Foreign governments still whispered her code name with respect and fear. But to the students of Jefferson High, she was something more powerful than a spy or a soldier. She was their teacher, the one who stood between them and danger not because she was trained to, but because she chose to. The one who showed them that true strength lies not in violence, but in protection, not in fame, but in service, not in being extraordinary, but in making the ordinary sacred. The epilogue that no one expected. 10 years later, Jennifer Patterson, she'd kept her last name despite everything, stood before her own classroom. She was a teacher now, inspired by a substitute who had saved her life twice, once from a bullet and once from giving up on education. On her desk was a photo from that day, not of the FBI response or the aftermath, but the moment after, when Sarah Mitchell had returned to teaching as if nothing had happened, hands shaking, voice soft, but eyes containing universes of strength. Jennifer's hands shook slightly as she wrote on the board, not from fear or age, but because she'd learned from the best that sometimes the greatest strength is in appearing vulnerable, that the best teachers are the ones who protect not just minds but lives, and that every substitute teacher who walks through the door might just be someone's guardian angel in disguise. When her students acted up, when they dismissed her as just another teacher, she would smile and think of Sarah Mitchell. Then she would quietly move the desk to the optimal defensive position, check the sight lines from the windows, and teach with the knowledge that she was prepared for anything. Because that's what Sarah Mitchell had really taught them. Heroes aren't born. They're not made in secret facilities or trained in covert operations. Heroes are ordinary people who decide, in critical moments, to be extraordinary. And sometimes, they're substitute teachers with trembling hands and centuries of secrets, standing guard over the future, one classroom at a time. Have you ever had a teacher who was more than they seemed? Someone whose ordinary appearance hid an extraordinary past? Share their story in the comments. Let's honor the educators who protect and serve in ways we never knew. Subscribe to The Human Stories. Every week, we share tales of hidden heroes and unexpected guardians. because sometimes the most powerful protectors are hiding in plain sight. And remember, the next time a substitute teacher walks into a classroom, trembling hands and soft voice, you might just be looking at someone who once saved the world and chose to save minds instead.